Hello. Hello, we are on air. Good morning, good Thursday morning to everyone. I hope you're here. Can you, if you're online, the way I'll know you're on is if you could please let me know that you can hear me in the comments area. That would be really cool if you could do that for me. And just before we start, especially for those of you who haven't been with me before, if you could please take a look at the polls that are underneath this video and answer the polls and take a look at the questions and vote on a question or submit your own question. We're going to try to answer those questions for you today. So I see in the comments area, yes, I can hear you. Awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Charlotte, Julianne, Ophelia. So nice to know that you're there. To begin with, I would love to introduce you to a wonderful colleague of mine, Deborah Brown Volkman, who I have been working with for many, many years on resumes for my clients and LinkedIn profiles. Deborah's from New York. We won't hold that against her.
Thank you.
So I'm going to quickly read her bio, and I'm going to let her say a couple of words about her work before we start. So it's really 2 pages long. I'm just cutting it down. Deborah is a top International Coach Federation coach. She's a PCC certified coach. She's a resume writer. She's a LinkedIn writer. An expert. She's a job search expert, which is why I love to work with her, an author of several career and job searching books with over 18 years of experience helping people find jobs and new careers and new ways of dealing with challenges in the workplace. Specialties include career transitions, outplacement, effective job search techniques, including resume preparation, LinkedIn profile, mock interviews, networking, evaluations, salary negotiations. She's got the whole package. So join me in welcoming Deborah. Hi.
Hello. I am very happy to be here. I was thinking earlier about being grateful, right? I am grateful to be here today. I am grateful to be with all of you. And Alicia, I'm grateful for you. You are such an amazing person, such a dynamo. Alicia and I have known each other for years. She is a person who pushes herself to do the best in the world. And that's what she does for her clients. You're an amazing person that's doing great things in the world. And it really is my honor to be here today.
Okay, thank you. And I did not pay her to say that.
Yes.
Okay, so let's see how many people are on. If you've just joined us, hi, Shindai, I see you. If you've just joined us, once again, let me just share with you, there are a few polls that you'll find underneath this video where you're watching. You'll see some polls. If you could answer those, that would be helpful for us. And also, we've submitted some questions, and some of you have submitted some questions. And go ahead, if you have a question, go ahead and write it into the questions and topics area, not into the comments area, but into the questions and topics area. And the reason is that if you put it there, the rest of the group can vote on a question. And so it helps us understand which of the questions that are most concerning to you. And so as we go through today, we're going to be able to answer those questions for you. We're also willing to stay a little later if you all can stay or you need to address some questions. You know, Deborah and I have talked about it. We can stay a little later. So let me just share with you the 3 areas. You're going to see me looking over here and over there because I've got some notes. 3 areas that we're going to cover today. And there's just so much that we could cover. So we really had to limit it to some things that we felt were really prevalent that Deborah sees in her work with clients and I see in my work with clients. So the very first thing that both of us see, and I think you may have experienced it if you've ever gone through a job search or career transition, is frankly fear. It's what you're afraid of. And so we're going to talk about what the fear is behind making a career transition or engaging a job search. I'm going to talk about it more from like the emotional psychological piece. And Deborah has a lot of experience working with clients who have some very, very practical concerns, right? I mean, right, Deborah? I mean, jump in anytime. But I think we need to get that one out of the way first. We're also going to talk about what do you do to set yourself up for success before you engage a career transition or a job search. So Deborah's going to talk a lot about what kinds of things you need to get ready in the practical world. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you have to, and some of you who've worked with me before will hear me say, you need to develop your criteria. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what that means and why it's so very important to do that before you start writing your resume, before you get into the whole job search. The other thing that we're going to talk about, the third topic, is pretty much the state of job hunting. Over the years, career management and how you engage a job search has changed so dramatically. And of course, Deborah's been at the forefront of that. So she's going to share her wisdom, her knowledge, her experience about what are clients going through, how long is a typical job search, and we're going to, other things that may be concerning with you. Deborah, do you want to add anything?
No, that's it.
Okay. Now, the other thing that we decided we would do is, since you all are taking the time to be with us today, for those of you that stay to the end, we are going to make a very, very special offer. Deborah has an offer for you, and I have an offer for you. But it will only be available to you if you stay till the end. Yes, we're bribing you to stay at the end. That might be true, but believe me, it's going to be worth it. So that, and for anyone who's registered, whether you're in person right now or simply registered and maybe hearing this as a replay, before we end, I'm going to type into the comments area a link where you can download 2 articles that will be really helpful for you in your job search. So Deborah is going to submit her article on the top 5 mistakes that people make when looking for a job. Don't do those things. So that's why we're giving it to you. And I'll be submitting something that's called the top 10 tips for networking. It's how networking is done. And so I will, again, Charlotte, I won't hold no. Charlotte is in Minneapolis, right? Charlotte. Yes. And she was living here when I met her in the DC area. Anyway, so once again, welcome everybody. And it's 12:08, so we're going to get started now that we've done all the introductory stuff. Did I miss anything, Deborah?
You did a wonderful job. I want to say that I'm a career coach, and one of the reasons I became a career coach is I was really unhappy in my career. I was working in the city, and in the beginning, when I first started working in the city, I hear a little noise in the background. I hear something. Okay. When I was working in the city initially, I loved it because, Alicia, do you hear the noise?
Yeah, there's a little. It's your microphone.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be better.
All right, so let me move back a little bit. So when I was in the city, in the beginning, I loved being in the city, doing big city things. But over time, it didn't work for me because I was meant to do something else. So I was unhappy in my career. I put myself on a path to find happiness, and now it's my mission to help other people be happy too. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably why you and I work so well together, because we both are really interested in having people be happy, reach their potential. And for me, I'm always talking about being the center of your universe, is really devoting some intentional time and reflective thought to what makes you happy and how to go after it.
Yeah.
So it's very important that we understand that, and that's where it goes to like the first topic is, when we talk about what we're afraid of, some of the things that people are afraid of when they first do anything that's different is simply the fear of the unknown. It's just not knowing what's going to happen? If I do this, then what? Or, we tend to, anytime there's a change, we tend to look at it first from the negative. What am I leaving? What am I losing? What could I lose? What is the risk involved? So yes, everything has risk. Anytime you change anything, there is some risk. But you can take risk, and you can take it with support and by setting it up in advance so that you have the best chance to success at whatever endeavor you have. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things about fear of change for me and transition has to do with, I often hear people just really focus in on what they're leaving behind. There's a certain point when you transition, and it can be because of a catalyst that's in your life. It could be, or your organization is reorging, or whatever it is, or it's just really personal. You just hate being where you are. Like Deborah said, she wasn't happy. But at a certain point, you start saying to yourself, this is what it is. Mm-hmm. I have to just, admit and acknowledge that this is what it is, and have faith that there's something better out there. So it's not, I always tell my clients, it's not so much about, don't focus on what you're leaving. Start engaging the possibility of something new. And we do certain exercises. I have one exercise that I really love called possible identities. I tell people oftentimes that we don't just have one purpose. People go and talk about finding purpose. I don't actually believe in finding purpose. I think the real question is, who am I today, and what do I need to express that has yet been unexpressed? That could be in life, that could be in work. It could be at a certain point in your life where you've gone through this wonderful career, you're retiring, which is a real acronym. Not an acronym, what is it called? In other words, it doesn't exist anymore. And it's like, how do I use my whole career and wisdom to do something else? Well, that's a different kind of career transition. And I don't know if you're seeing that, Deborah, where older people in their 50s and 60s who are at the end of their career are maybe looking at maybe not having a traditional work life, but doing something a little different, maybe volunteering, boards, starting a company. Do you see that as well?
Yes, I am seeing that. I want to go back to for a moment for what we were talking about, fear, because fear is normal. Fear is normal. I think it should be expected. Sometimes, I don't know what that noise is. Sometimes people say to me, I'm not going to be afraid. I think you should expect to be afraid. If you're going to do something different, you will be afraid. But everybody has something. No matter who I speak to, whether it's somebody who's, 19 or, 59 or 79, everybody has a fear, and there's different fears. People tell me I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm the wrong height, I'm the wrong race, I have too much skill, I have too little skill. Everybody has something. And when you go out into the workplace, what that is an objection. Like some of the questions we have, like how do you rebuild credibility when you're absent from the workforce? That's a fear. But if you take a look, work is work. Work is whether you get paid, whether it's a hobby, whether you're a stay-at-home parent that's running the PTO. What you do has value. And when you see value, then you're able to make a case for it. I do think that you should expect to be afraid, and that to make a decision, not let the fear stop you.
Right. I always, one of the things about fear is I think we think fear is really bad. By the way, Deborah, it could be your volume is too high on your computer. If you could lower it maybe a little. I don't see, I absolutely agree with you that there is fear inherent in any time we do any kind of transition or change. But I think fear is a call to attention. I guess I have this little Alicia-ism that's here that basically says courage is the active engagement of fear. And so it's not to say fear is going to stop me. Fear is saying there's something here that you should be paying attention to. And it could be that you haven't done the upfront work to engage in a job search. And so you're not feeling confident about stepping into that unknown. So pay attention to something that you're afraid of, but don't look at it as this is going to stop me, or this is abnormal, or anything like that. Look at it as, okay, what is this asking me to pay attention to, and how will I fill in those blanks? So if it's something that I don't know, like I don't know what it would be like to have this kind of job or this kind of career, what do you need to do to go find out? Mm-hmm. If you don't know what your criteria is, what do you need to do to go find out? And so I think that's the way you best handle any kind of fear without having it be paralysis and stopping you. So just quickly, from those of you who are on, I'd like to hear in the comments area, what are you afraid of? And well, how do you handle that? Or what kinds of things do you find that are useful in handling fear if you're still going to be, we're assuming that you're going to keep moving on and still, work with the fear. So let me know.
Okay. Alicia, I also want to say sometimes fear is unanswered questions. Like I get questions like, will the grass really be greener somewhere else? Do I have the right skill set? How do I update my resume? How do I use social media? And that holds people back versus I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn it into a question, and I'm going to go into proactive mode. I'm going to go into research mode. I'm going to get the answers to my questions, which are going to lessen my fear.
Right, exactly. And so it's filling in those blanks. So Julianne says, fear of rejection, reminding myself not to take it personally. And she also mentions feeling kind of like an imposter, leaving nonprofit work and getting into a new field. So what's interesting, Julianne, is, and I want to ask Deborah about this rejection piece, is, you shouldn't take it personally, but it's more along the lines of, when you talk about feeling like an imposter, that's what I mean. You're looking at it from a deficit point of view. So what do I not have? What's missing, right? I'm not saying that's a bad question to ask, but your focus on it will keep you stuck. I have this other Aliciaism that says you don't drop anchor if you want to go sailing. That kind of fear is like your anchor. It's going to be hard to go sailing. It's going to be hard to move ahead. And so start to counteract that imposter feeling. Start thinking about what you have to offer. And a part of it is, and how do you apply what you have to offer? So you're getting into a new field. You've certainly done wonderful things where you are. This is what, this is one of Deborah's expertises, is taking what you've done and translating it into language that says, okay, I can apply these skills, these talents, these achievements to something new. So, Deborah, I want you to kind of talk about, what happens when clients get rejected, and also what does the other side look like? So the human resources side, what could be going on for them as well, so that you don't take it personally? And then also, when you're doing this, how do you take what you've done and apply it to something new?
Okay. All right. Great questions. Let's start with rejection, right? The truth is, in life, some people will like you and some people will not like you. I don't think that you can get around that. If you submit a resume online, and you get an automatic, let's call it rejection, that person doesn't know you. So you don't need everybody in the world to love you. You need one job, right? You need one job, one spouse, you need one house to live in. So you want to find someone who likes you, who gets you, who wants you to be part of their organization. All right, I'm going to lower this, see if that helps.
Yeah.
So I think that you should expect rejection. And a lot of times it's just that they just don't know you. But like I said, you just need one job. You need one place, where you really truly click. A lot of times people get what I said before. You submit something online and people say, "Oh, I got rejected." That's really a computer that's scanning keywords in your resume and comparing it to the job description. If there's not enough meat or keywords, you get an automatic, "You're not for us." Sometimes human resources is looking for a certain skill set, a certain culture. It's almost like if you were in Hollywood and you were up for a part. If they're looking for, a blonde lady who is, 100 pounds, if you're not a blonde lady who's 100 pounds, you're not going to get that part. Sometimes the corporate world is looking for, I don't want to say, looks, but they're looking for a certain attitude, a certain skill set, a certain something. And if you don't have it, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means you're not a fit for that, and that you're just meant for something else. You're meant for something greater. That's not your place.
Right. And so I'm also looking at the first question, how to build or rebuild credibility when absent from workforce, even when you have a degree, is kind of a version of how do I move from one kind of career to another. Can you talk a little bit about how you help people translate and look at what they've done? I know I've sent people to you and they come to you almost like overly humble, like they don't see that they've done anything extraordinary. Yeah. And then you start talking to them and then you're like, wow, they've done all these great things and they don't even recognize it, So how do you help people move from where they've been to maybe a really new place? What kinds of things can they do and what kinds of things can you do to help?
Yes. Well, the question about building or rebuilding credibility assumes that you're coming from a deficit. It's assuming that you don't have it. Experience comes from different places. It comes from paid work. It comes from volunteer work. It comes, I'm sorry, I don't know I feel bad about the noise. Experience comes from different places. It comes from paid work. It comes from work. It comes from volunteering. It comes from hobbies. It comes from education. Your job is to make a case for a position. And it doesn't have to just be paid work. It could be anything as long as you're making a case. But you can't make that case unless you believe it yourself. And if you think that you're coming from a deficit, everybody else is going to feel that you're coming from a deficit. Jen Dea, I don't know if I said the name right. She said, I feel my absence from the workplace has given others, especially I hate to say, other women to dismiss the women, being penalized for choosing to stay at home. It's how you project yourself. It's how you say what you've done at home. Let's say you want to go let's say you're in finance. Well, talk about how maybe you helped your husband run his business while you were home. Maybe you ran all the finances for the PTO, or for another organization or a group. It's really taking a look at what the job description says, what the marketplace is looking for, and then just making a case for it, and the case comes in different places.
Does that help, Jandari? Let us know if that helps.
Yes, and I said your name in my New York accent, so I do apologize.
I told you, you have forgiveness from the get-go, Deborah. Even Charlotte agrees. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about what you do to prepare yourself for success, and all of this is woven in. It's not like totally separate. It's all woven in. So I think, Deborah, I think of you and I as like, I'm the internal person, the one that is going to like work with people on their internal stuff. And then once they figure out, I'm like, oh no, now you need to go to Deborah. And you're like the external expert that knows what's going on in the outer world. I'm the inner world person. You're the outer world person. I think it makes a great match. And for me, what the inner world is, and you alluded a little to it earlier, Deborah, is really understanding your values. And by values, what I mean to say is what's important to you. So as an example, if I know this about myself, that I'm a person of high integrity, I am a person that enjoys helping people, I am not going to put myself in a job or look for a career where my two top values are not present. I'm not going to go to a place where it's all about selling someone something, regardless of whether it serves them. I'm not going to go to a place where there's a lack of transparency, because it would be awful, because I would be so unhappy. So one of the things I tell people to do, and we do practices around this, is uncovering what is it that you care about. Because if you're in a place that's against that, or that's not aligned with what you care about, the frustration level will eventually grow so much that you just won't be able to stay. And so values, what I care about, what matters. Now, the other thing is, when I talk about criteria, I ask them to write down everything that's important to them. And so they come up with a list from anywhere from 10 to 20. And eventually we whittled that down to 5. And these are 5 musts, or maybe it's 4 musts and 1, a little flexibility. And those can range anywhere from I need to work in a team because I like being around people, versus another person who might say, I don't want to work in teams. I want to work with just by myself. I want to work with people. No, I want to work with animals, or whatever it is. But it's also things like, I don't want to commute more than 30 minutes, or I want to be able to come home and be with my family, or meet my kids at school, or a family-friendly environment. So there are things that matter to us, which I call criteria. And you need to be very, very clear on what that is, because if they're not met, you are going to be frustrated in a new job fairly quickly. And not all of them. There's a few of them that are musts, like integrity would be a must for me. That's just not negotiable. But there's a few others that might be, okay, it's not a 30-minute commute. It's a 45-minute commute. I can deal with that, right? So before you start looking outside, start looking inside and start considering what it is that you need to be happy, to have the job work within your life. So rather than to look at, I'm going to arrange my life around my job, which we do often, we do this a lot. It's more like, how will I find a job that allows me to live a particular life or lifestyle that brings me more meaning and joy? And I think that's very, very critical. At a certain point in your career, particularly when you're younger, you probably have more flexibility. You don't have kids, you don't have a family, you don't have mortgages. You have more flexibility to move around. But once you have some of these life events, kids, marriage, homes, mortgages, and everything else that in this culture we have, you end up being a little less flexible. And I'm not saying they're good or bad. I'm just saying that it's different. You're making choices based on a whole different set of criteria than maybe your last job, especially if you've been in your job for like 10 years, which is a good question I have for you, Deborah, is I'm really curious as to nowadays, what's like a long time to be in a job? Like, how often are jobs turning over nowadays? Because I think people are staying in their positions a lot less time than before. So I'd like to ask you that too.
Yeah.
That's the internal part that I ask my clients to work on. And then once we're clear, I can go and say, Deborah, here's the criteria that this person has. How do we find something for that person? What do we need to do? So that's the piece that I want Deborah to talk about.
Okay. How long people are in their jobs. I'm wondering if should I sign out and sign back in? Do you think?
It's not as bad as maybe you hear it.
All right, it's not bad. Okay, all right, then I'm gonna go.
Okay, but I think it's because your computer is your volume's too high.
Yeah, I made it lower. Is that better? Not really. Yes.
I can't hear you.
Now you can't hear me. All right, I'll make it louder. Okay.
Okay.
How long people stay in their jobs depends on how long the job works for them, as well as how long it works for the company. So it depends. If you think about industries have always changed throughout the years. People used to mine for gold. People, used to build railroads. Sometimes you're in a job for as long as an industry is there. I'm in New York. 100% of garments used to be made here. Now 5% of garments. So if you walk around the garment district, now there's hotels, there's restaurants. So, how long you stay really depends on how long the job is there for you. And that's why you always want to keep looking and saying, what's next, what's next, what's next. Once Alicia is able to help clients have clarity, that's when I said, Kate, I don't have headphones with me.
I I was just going to ask you if you. I was just going to ask you the same thing. I think headphones would be useful.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? You and I, we had this conversation the other day. It was fine.
I know.
It was perfectly. Alicia and I did a test. We ran through. We had different conversations. We checked the lighting. Not a problem. Now all of a sudden there's a problem. But basically, Alicia is masterful in clarity. And once she helps her clients have clarity, my role is to take that and make them look good on paper and online. So when people come to me, the first thing I ask them is, do you know what you want to do? So how do you prepare for success? You have to have clarity. Once you have clarity, then you can create your documents. You can create a focus resume. You can create a cover letter. You can get your LinkedIn page updated. But none of that can happen, unless you know the type of position that you have in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the things that you can help people with? So they come to you and they say, okay, I get a sense, I may be thinking of this, that, or the other thing. How do you take this sort of, and oftentimes it's not just one thing, right? It could be possibilities, 2 possibilities, 3 possibilities. How do you take that and turn that into an effective resume?
Yeah,
or LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time people that come to me, they have different things that they could do, and what's really keeping them from choosing is they're afraid, right? They're afraid of making the wrong choice. Maybe they've made choices in the past, it didn't work out for them. Maybe they like to be free. Maybe they don't want to choose. Maybe they don't want to be tied down. So we really take a look at their background and their skill set and say, okay, if you had your way, what would be an ideal job for you?
Right.
If you had your way, which one of these 3 things do you enjoy the most?
Right.
And then I have them take a look at some job descriptions to see what's going on in the workplace. And a lot of times what makes a decision is based on what the demand is for work, what the demand is for employees.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does anybody have a comment about that or a question? Because we're here for you, so I want to make sure there's now quite a few of you on here. Please jump in the comments area. I'm going to pause because I know it sometimes takes a moment or two to get from what you're typing to us. And also, I want to remind you to please take the polls. If right underneath what the viewing area, if you could just hit the word polls and take those polls so we know, get some information from you. And again, there are some questions that are outstanding that you can vote on.
Yes, Charlotte has a question. Narrowing it down is challenging for the employer to think you'll be happy in a focused position. I've helped people who have done a lot of different things, and they narrow it down, and how you spin it for the employer is, especially I've worked with people who run businesses and they have to go back to work. So whatever area they choose is how we focus their resume. So they might say, when I was doing a lot of things, my favorite thing was finance. My favorite thing was operations. My favorite thing, my favorite thing was marketing, right? So if you can say, I want to do this because it's my favorite thing and I'm great at it, and you could make a case for it, and you believe it first, that's how you won't convince. You have a great conversation with a potential employer, so they see that you're a match for the position. Charlotte, it could be that you're trying too hard. How do I convince? How do I show? How do I rebuild credibility? It's something. It's like if you feel you're coming from a deficit, even if you are perfectly matched for the position, it's going to come across that you're coming from a deficit. So you own it first, and then you're able to project it into the world, and then the people around you will see it.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to point out that I see people oftentimes, they'll come to me and say, I'm leaving my job and I need to find a job as soon as possible. And I always say, if at all possible, do not do that. Because when they're leaving, they haven't, oftentimes when they're leaving because they have to leave for some reason, and they're literally grieving. And so you need some time to go from this position and kind of either heal or recenter or recalibrate or calm down I had one client out in Seattle whose division was closing down. She was the manager, and they paid her extra to stay extra, but it was like, war pay. And it was awful for her. And she knew what her last day was going to be, like, let's say April 15th. And she had a job offer that started like May 1. And I basically said, are you going to be psychologically, physically, mentally, emotionally prepared to start a new job? And the answer was no. And so I often tell people, if you're in that kind of position, you need to give yourself, if at all possible, 8 weeks. And that's not really a long time, but it's a way of kind of, cleaning out all that kind of debris from something that's occurred before. Because when you walk into an interview, I totally agree with Deborah, people will sense whether you're confident or not. They'll sense it whether you're optimistic or pessimistic, because we're sensing beings. Humans are sensing beings, and a good interviewer is going to be able to sense that, and maybe even ask you a question that's going to really knock you off center if you're not in a position to be grounded in something new, because other than just trying to relieve yourself from something from the past.
Yes. For Charlotte's question, I said, well, in your resume, she said, I have a lot of HR consulting experience, but they're not seeing process improvement or operations oriented. Basically, all they're seeing is what you're telling them. They only see what's on paper, and they only see what comes out of your mouth. So if you're not making a case for process improvement or operations on paper, then they're not going to see it, and then you will be convincing them.
Absolutely agreed. And that's how you translate from the past to the future and take those skills and apply it. And so it's a good deal of wordsmithing. I also want to bring into the conversation another thing, and that's networking. I know, like in a previous life, I heard the statistic that more jobs are found through networking or through personal contacts than just, getting on the computer and sitting on the computer all day long, submitting your resume to I don't know how many robots, right? And so that's why one of the giveaways that we have for you has to do with effective networking, because my mom has some of you know my last name is Hispanic, but my mom speaks Spanish, and she has the saying called poner la cara. Poner la cara literally means to put your face in front of them. But what it really means is people need to get to know you. And so, our business, as an example, is primarily word of mouth. People get to know us and go, okay, I could work with that person. I could trust that person. I trust that they're competent. I trust that they have our best interests at heart. But what that takes is having a way of becoming visible to others. And so this networking piece, when you're networking, it takes on a whole bunch of different forms. It's not just personal networking, which is, going to an event or something like that. And again, in the download, you'll see what you need to do to make that effective. So it's not just personal networking, but it's also this thing I called about personal brand and being visible through your LinkedIn profile. I wrote a post not too long ago, why women don't write their LinkedIn profile. Almost every woman that comes to me for coaching does not have a LinkedIn profile or has a really poor LinkedIn profile. And it's really key right now. It's a kind of like an online networking where people get to find you, and you can have conversations through LinkedIn. You can send a message to someone who's connected to someone and say, hey, so-and-so referred me. Do you have 10 minutes to talk to me about something? I'm in a career transition, and I want to find out more about what you do. And 9 out of 10 times, they're going to say yes. And you need to be specific, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or whatever. But 9 out of 10 times, they're going to say yes. So that's a form of like online networking and having a conversation versus just throwing your resume into, I call them robots. But, what do you think, Deborah, about networking? I mean, you see it also.
Networking is so important, especially if you're looking to transition into a new career, an informal interview, informational interview really makes a difference. But people, that goes back to the fear. A lot of this is fear. If you think about a job search, it's very logistical. You put a resume, cover letter, LinkedIn page together. You submit things to job boards. You go to networking meetings. You talk to people. Very logistical things. It's like dialing a phone. You pick it up, you dial, you say hello. What keeps people from doing these very logistical things is fear. So what you said before, a person might know that I have some unanswered questions. I need to talk to someone, but they're afraid. They're afraid the person's going to say no. That goes back to the comment earlier about rejection. Some people will like you, some people won't. Some people will help you, some people won't. But the majority of times when I ask people, I say to them, if somebody came to you and asked for help, would you help them? And they say, of course I would. And I say to them, well, why wouldn't they help you? So it's just asking and doing it and being appreciative. Also with networking, people are afraid that it's one-sided. So you can ask somebody for something, you can ask them for their opinion, you can ask for their help, and then at the end of the conversation, you can say, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And then this way, if you see something, you can help the other person. It's not so one-sided. It's really about win-win.
Mm-hmm. So I want to go to a question that I see, Deborah. It says, how to manage a LinkedIn profile during career transition to a new field. Now, I'm not sure, Kate wrote this, I'm not sure I completely understand the question, but I'm wondering if, and Kate, you can write in the comments area, when you say manage a LinkedIn profile during career transition to a new field, I think you're saying kind of write the LinkedIn profile in a way that reflects all your talents, I would say on a continuum. So it's not just leaving behind what you've done, but asking yourself, what about my past supports this future position or this future aspirational place I want to be? So from that point of view, I'm going to ask Deborah about the value of a LinkedIn profile and what do people look for in a LinkedIn profile? Where do you need to focus, especially during a transition, a career transition, not just a job transition, but a career transition to a new field?
Yes, great question. I want to just say something about resumes. Resumes make a case for a position. So in your job search, you may have multiple resumes based on different positions. So like what Charlotte was saying, I was in HR. Maybe she'll have different HR resumes. Maybe she'll have one that's more process oriented. Maybe she'll have one that's more operations oriented. Maybe she'll have one that's more consulting oriented, right? So it makes a case for a position. What a computer or a person does is comparing the job description to the resume. Match, no match, match, no match. A LinkedIn profile is different. A LinkedIn profile, you only have one, so it's a big picture summary of everything that you've done. So in your summary, you can say, I'm a professional that has experience in, these different areas of human resources, because employers use LinkedIn, recruiters use LinkedIn, and they're looking for keywords. So you want more in your LinkedIn profile. The thing about a career transition, it depends what you're doing. So if you're doing something completely different and you're in the process of updating your skills based on education, then that might be something that I would put in the summary, just to say, for the present, transitioning to a new field, and here's what I'm doing to get ready for that field.
Mm-hmm. So here's an interesting question, maybe about LinkedIn profiles and resume. What do you do when you've taken a year off, or you've taken a chunk of time off between positions? So I'm looking for a position, but I've actually maybe intentionally decided to take a year off. How do you talk about that in a resume or LinkedIn profile, and maybe even in an interview?
All right, people take breaks. Everybody takes breaks. It's all about holding your head up high. For a resume for a mom, rather than stay-at-home mom, I updated her resume in that section to say, full-time mom on call.
Domestic goddess?
Yes, domestic goddess. It's like, when you own it, other people own it. People take breaks. People take breaks to take care of family members. People take breaks to travel. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll title a section called career hiatus, and then underneath that they talk about the things that you did. Like maybe you traveled to a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever maybe you took classes, whatever it is. It's like I took a break. Here's what I accomplished during that break, and here's how it's going to benefit you, the employer, because now I'm better, stronger, and faster because of it.
Yeah. I also want to point out something I just noticed. In the last question, when Charlotte asked about, I'm 5 times older and seems that the individual I'm interviewing with doesn't appreciate or value my diverse background. I love Deb Davis's answer to that. I want to point that out. She says, check the book Millennial Rules, How to Connect with the First Digitally Savvy Generation of Consumers and Employees by T. Scott Gross. It was an eye-opener for me. Thank you, Deborah, for Deb, for sharing that that resource. I have not heard of that. Deborah, I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, it looks like a great resource.
I'm going to check out that book. Yeah.
You know, everybody there's no discrimination if there's demand. Okay. Am I too old? Am I too young? All of that goes out the window if there is demand for your skill set. So if you're going out there and you're interviewing and you're not getting a job and other people, maybe they're younger or they're older, it means that you just don't have the skill set at the present time that works, that employers really want. I mean, why do employers go overseas? Yes, the pay rate is different, but what they're saying is there's a skill set that I can't get here. So you could be 70 years old, but if you have a skill set that employers want and they can't fill that position, it doesn't matter how old you are.
Good. Yeah. So I just want to remind the people who are on to please go to the polls and to the questions and topics. But mostly the polls, I'm looking at the polls. Very few people have answered the 2 polls that are there. And I'm going to encourage you and nudge you to please answer those polls because they're very helpful to us. Particularly, well, not particularly because both of them are, but one of the questions that I think Deborah gets quite often is a combination of, when should I update my resume, which is why that first question is there about when was the last time you updated your resume. And also, how long should a resume be? So, Deborah, I'm going to ask you to see what do you say to those 2?
Okay, resume should always be updated, always, because if your resume is updated, then your LinkedIn profile is updated. Employers sometimes prefer people who are working, so opportunities will come to you, if your documents, your resume, LinkedIn page are updated. It does make a big difference. Mm-hmm. All right, and Elise, what was the second question?
How long should a resume be?
Oh, yeah, biggest question. 1 page, 2 pages. It keeps people up at night, okay? A resume makes a case for a position. It could be 1 page, it could be 2 pages. It doesn't matter as long as you're making a case. I don't think it should be 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages, unless you're doing a CV, because a CV has more information. I don't think a resume for a mid, like a manager and above, 1 page. I don't think it's enough. And if you're submitting your resume online, honestly, the longer the resume, the better, because computers are just scanning for keywords.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so a 1 page, you're not going to be considered if you don't have enough meat. And 1 page really isn't enough meat unless you're fresh out of college.
Right. And what about the cover letter? What's the role of the cover letter, and what are people looking for from an employer or human resources point of view? What are they looking for in cover letters? What makes them read the cover letter and say, yes, I want to read the resume? What encourages people to do that?
Well, that's the question. Who's reading the cover letter? So if a lot of times if you're submitting a job and you're uploading it to a website, nobody is reading it. It's just a computer that is scanning for it, looking for a couple of keywords. Sometimes they won't even ask for it. Sometimes it's optional. The time to spend on a cover letter is if you're emailing it to someone. So if you're emailing it to someone, someone is reading it. You could pour your heart and soul into it. Like, for example, I helped a client who wanted to work for Harley Davidson. He was able to email his resume to someone, and he said, I own 3 Harleys. So if someone's going to read it, spend the time on it. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense because there's just a computer that's looking at it.
Right. Okay. So,
and I also want to say that I've seen people pour their heart and soul into cover letters more so in the cover letter than the resume. The resume is really getting scanned for, job description, resume, match, no match, no match. People will just submit the same resume over and over again without really tweaking it, but we'll spend hours and hours on a cover letter that in many cases doesn't even get read.
So I'm going to turn it to people who are online with us and ask you, we've got 10 minutes. So I want to make sure that you get the most out of our conversation here with Deborah. Go to the comments area or go to the question area, but what does this inspire with you? I'm really curious to see how many of you are actually in a job search or anticipate being in a job search in the next, let's say, 3 months. So let me know on the comments area, how many of you are currently in a job search or anticipate being in a job search in the next 3 months? I'm going to pause a minute to, yes, current passive. Okay. I'm curious what passive means, by the way. What is
passive probably means she's waiting for opportunities to come to her. Maybe she looks sometimes, not actively. Not every day, not 3 times a day.
Oh.
Yeah, see, she's busy with other things. Yes.
A little overwhelmed buying a car.
But if a great opportunity comes to her, Julianne, if your LinkedIn page is updated, when you update your LinkedIn page, your rankings move to the top, and then recruiters will start reaching out to you.
See, that was a tidbit I didn't know. Now, I update my LinkedIn page probably once a month or more frequently. Because, I want to talk about something that I just remembered.
All right. So Alicia, you'll get more activity, but go ahead.
Oh, good to know. So personal brand, that's what I wanted to talk about. And LinkedIn is a way of establishing yourself and your brand. So when I talk about personal brand, what I'm saying is, what do I want to be known for? So in my industry, I want to be known for what? And so how you can use LinkedIn is, it's easier for me because I'm a writer. So I love to write. So I write a lot on LinkedIn, and I have a lot of articles on LinkedIn in the post area. It's really interesting because a lot of people are using LinkedIn, and I want to ask you this later about using LinkedIn as a bio or resume. Hold that thought. But a lot of them are using them as blogs because LinkedIn gets so much traffic. So I post a lot of my blog material into LinkedIn on posts, but I'm doing that because of personal brand. I'm looking to build a personal brand to be known for something, and people get a sense of who I am by reading what I write. And so I would suggest that particularly if you're looking for a senior or an executive kind of position, you start considering writing and posting things on LinkedIn that demonstrate your philosophy, your approach, and your acumen that position you in the personal brand arena that you want to be positioned. Mm-hmm. So that was my personal brand conversation.
Yes. LinkedIn is your opportunity to tell people, what's not in a resume. So let's say a resume is 2 pages long. You talk about some of the places you worked and what you did. There's only a certain amount of space. It doesn't always talk about the stories, how you made a place better, the results that you did, how is this particular job better because you were in it. You have the opportunity to do that with LinkedIn. You can add more stuff. It doesn't really matter how long a profile is. What really makes a difference is, do you have focus, and are you showing that focus to the world? And, you own it, and then the world sees it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, so we're getting towards the end, and I promised you that we would have some offers for you. So I want to talk a little bit because you all stayed with us, and we appreciate it. So here's our offers right now. So Deborah has been very, very generous, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit about it, to offer a 30-minute resume audit. And so can you talk a little bit about what your offer is and what does it entail?
Yes. Well, basically, you send me your resume, and we have a telephone conversation, and I'm going to give you my honest and straightforward opinion of your resume.
Very honest. So
yeah, it's very honest, but in a good way. A lot of times, people ask me, what's wrong? What's wrong with my resume? And most of the time, the resume is fine. Maybe it has some typos. A lot of times, what's missing is focus, and the case the position you want isn't there. So you send me your resume, and I'm going to talk to you about 3 ways that you can stand out and shine during your job search. Charlotte, I really would like you to take me up on that, to email me your resume and some of the job descriptions, because I have a feeling your resume needs to be tweaked, because there's something that's missing from the way you're presenting yourself, and they're just not seeing it. But it can be fixed. And it can be tweaked.
I'm writing Charlotte, okay?
Charlotte, yes.
So Charlotte, you're in an active job search. I would definitely take her up on that.
Yes, I absolutely want to see it. And I promise you that there will be something that you can do differently, and it's going to make a tremendous difference in your job search.
And sometimes it's really interesting, just getting a professional pair of eyes on it and just tweaking it a little can make a difference. So Charlotte, or anybody who's online still, this is our offer to you. And I'm offering a complimentary 30-minute exploratory session on getting clear on what it is that you're looking for, what your values are, what's important to you. So as I said, I'm kind of the internal person, and Deborah's the external person. So if you're trying to get some clarity on how a job or a career might fit into your life, and you don't even know what questions to ask, well, I'm the question person. So again, my offer is a complimentary 30-minute exploratory session to help you get clear on what your values and what some of your criteria are. And you'll probably end up with some resources and assessments that I use that will help you even beyond that. So for all of you who are online, I know who you are because the system tells me who's been online with us. You'll receive an email from me within about an hour or so, and it will send you a link. And please go to that link, and that's where you're able to redeem the offers. And so I hope that works. I also posted on the comments area the link. It's a Dropbox link where you can download the 2 articles that we referred to, the 5 mistakes that you make in a job search from Deborah, and my 10 practices for effective networking. They're both in that Dropbox. And so you're able to just go to that Dropbox and download it, and it's another way that we can support you as you move forward in either a job search or a job change, or even in the future as well.
Yes. I'm looking at Julianne's question, and she says, I feel like an imposter leaving nonprofit work and getting into a new field. All you're doing is you're just switching from, one thing to another, and you probably have a whole host of transferable skills. You probably have more. You're probably less of an imposter than you think, because you bring more to the table than you think. So I would also like you to take me up on the resume audit so I can take a look and see what you're going for, and to help you be more focused so you don't feel imposter. Right.
And I think that's kind of the same kind of another version of how to rebuild credibility when absent from the workforce. And it also goes to, if you've been absent, how do you frame that absence in a way that's interesting and positive? So that's from Charlotte. So again, I encourage all of you. Okay, Ophelia, are you done? Very happy to have you all. And if there's nothing else, we'll pause for a couple of minutes. But if not, we're pretty much at the end of our session. I want to thank Deborah so much for all your input and your great advice. And as always, I always look forward to working with Deborah. And I want to thank all of you who attended as well. We do have another session coming up. It will be next Thursday. And that session is Tapping the Genius in You. And this was actually a request, a conversation about intuition, inspiration, and creativity and personal development. And so, as usual, because you're on this list, you'll receive something from me. But you know, for all of you who are online, you will receive an email from me telling you how to redeem this offer. So everybody, thank you. And we'll just hang out a little while to see if there's anything else, and take us up on the offers. You'll be glad you did. Okay. Anything else? No. 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 Okay, then we're gonna sign off and say goodbye. All good? Julianne, thank you. Thank you for coming, Julianne. Bye-bye. All right, signing off. Take care, everyone. See you on Thursday.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Deborah. Thank you.